I would now like to point you to the work of Curtis Kallenback, who was instrumental in a way of setting us free from one of the greatest scams of all time. That was the legal name trap, which plays a big part of our enslavement into the system of control over our minds, both in the physical and the spiritual realms. And of course, the other big influence and founder of the legal name scam was Kate of Gaia, which dominates a lot of my earlier videos on my channel. So since revisiting Curtis's work on the birth process, I would like to feature a few short videos of his explaining how we all have been deceived into this illusion of the legal named person, which is all owned and operated by the Crown Corporation, along with how to reclaim our family DNA. And please, take a look at my 4-part series entitled, Stay Away from Legal. I will also post links to Curtis Kallenback's contact pages and channel below. Thank you.
You have to say about that?
I love that's. This is why I love you, lady. No, here's what's amazing. Lex Mercatoria. It's a merchant court system. But what is it that what is the impetus behind that system? It's a product. But where does the product begin? The product begins with your father's name. It's called industrial property. Kallenback is property. Kallenback is industrial property. That industrial property I only succeed to it. I only get it. It's my property through my father only if he is my father. Meaning, if I take on some other father, some arbitrary father, if I walk into a church and call somebody else father, I've abandoned my own father. So the whole point is that my father, Kallenback, Richard Kallenback, the man in that photograph, he wasn't my father yet, but he was carrying me probably. The point is that my father's name, Kallenback, is property. That property is subject to what's known as the Lanham Act, Lanham, Lanham Act. That Lanham Act says that the original material, the material that brings forth the name Kallenback, is property. If I can't get back to my dad, my biological father, I have no rights to his name. All this patriot bullshit to change status is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, because a living man doesn't go from dead to alive. You don't change status from living to dead or dead to alive. That's what these morons are trying to do. Pretend that they're alive when in fact on paper they're dead. So my whole point is this. John 8:32 King James Bible says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." That implies you already are. All you have to do is accept reality, accept the truth. There's nothing more to do. Just know it all the way down to your true origin. Accept that nature doesn't have equality. There's no equality in nature. And understand that where you begin is where you begin. They can't arbitrarily create a character to equalize everybody when in fact in nature there is no such equality. I think that the dumbest thing I've even been involved in this stupidity. Don't get me wrong. 12 years ago, I started out as one of these morons that believed that consent was relevant. No, it isn't. Consent's not relevant. There's something called the emergency doctrine. Something emerging. An emergency doctrine that says when there's an emergency, all consent is implied. As long as there's an emergency going on in this country, all consent's implied. So you cannot not consent. I can't believe people aren't actually listening to me. So when I hear somebody that is 9 or 10 years behind me saying that they have an answer to something, I cringe. Let me do one thing. Rose, let me just read. Now, you know that my letters are almost on a 1-to-1 correlation with executive orders, and I can prove this, executive orders and or proclamations coming out of the president, out of that office. I'm now sending another letter to the president. Let me read the last paragraph, which if you understand what's being said here. By the way, this is a monopoly. That birth certificated person that only exists upon the cutting and taking of your property, when your property is cut from the umbilical cord and taken, when that's called larceny. When that larcenous act then is given title, it's still larceny. So the point is they create a monopolistic character that they own and operate. And then you think you're going to go ahead and change the name to their property? What kind of a fool would think? I mean, if I'm wearing Levi's jeans and I go to the courtroom right now and say, listen, I love the way these jeans fit me. They suit me just fine. So I want to change the name of Levi to Kallenback. Do you really think the court's going to allow me to change the name, the brand name of this particular pair of pants or suit to suit myself?
Or what about changing the name of a Reese's peanut butter cup?
Yeah, well, so here's my paragraph, and this paragraph right now, if people learned, because this is a recorded event right now, if people learned the words in this is 12 years. This one paragraph will set you light. This is enlightenment. This paragraph is true enlightenment all the way down. You learn the words in this paragraph, and you will understand that you don't need to do paperwork. Ready?
Ready.
This is it. This is a new paragraph. Finally, Mr. President, it has been stated in John 8:32 KJV Bible, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Just as truth is not reducible, the whole of man cannot be cut between fertilization and last breath. Such truth of the matter is all or nothing. Yet via false light, alternative Gregorian civil nativity, a superstitious burden, contrary to man's absolute truth, is born. That's born, B-O-R-N-E. Today is the day to put away childish things, such as a pretended recording or reconstruction of a spiritually bankrupt vestigial vessel, which I call a caterpillar, and acknowledge upon the holistic United States of America only the inspired supreme being of one's evolutionary entirety, which I call the butterfly, soaring freely above the fixed or staked marker of a duplicitous partial birth certificated memorial plot. Today is the day to officially make, and here's the key word, nulla bona, the monopolistic church-state corporate veil mask and its larcenous customary biometric cut deposit feud cover charge for such felled things are unclean undertakings absolutely incompatible with one's life, God, laws of nature, and nature's God. Such severed things prove beyond a reasonable doubt an intent to ruin one's whole life by an intentional act of violence. Learn that.
Beautiful.
It is. I got goosebumps, and I wrote the damn thing.
It's very poetic because it's got that ring of truth.
It nulla bona. Let's just go right there right now, and then I'm gonna cut you loose. Here we go. Nulla bona. Everything, IRS, every court case. Remember, this is about property. Whose property is it and who can prove it? That's all that we're doing ever in life. Is it mine or is it yours? It's one or the other. It can't be both. By the way, if it is both, you know what that's called, Rose?
A split personality?
Uh-oh. I lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, you're way, way, way off in the distance right now.
Hello. Is it a split personality?
It's called equity.
Oh.
So everybody that's claiming equity, they want to share their property with somebody else or have an interest in somebody else's business. Let me tell you something. Ownership is not equity. How many people, Rose, can own my DNA?
No, just you, just one.
Just me. While I'm breathing, while I have the Spirit of God, the breath of God in my lungs, in my sails, nobody else has a claim upon this DNA. And yet, there are people out there that want to talk about equity, sharing their DNA. And you share your DNA when they cut the umbilical cord and put your DNA into a public pool. That's public versus private. Again, people talking about public versus private have no fucking idea, Rose, what the difference is. If my DNA is in a public pool, then there's no way for me to become a private man ever again. If I allow that cut to go into public, I can never be private. So when people don't understand the biology of the cut, the first cut is the deepest. If they don't understand that when that umbilical cord is cut, you're in the public from that point on. You're in a public cesspool for the rest of your life until you get back to your origin, which is fertilization. Nulla, here it is, nulla bona. Latin, no goods. Goods. No goods. No goods. Here's what it says. The name of the return made by the sheriff to a writ of execution when he has not found any goods of the defendant within his jurisdiction on which he could levy. You know what the definition of goods is, Rose? The unborn of animals. Yes, the unborn of animals. Alfred Adask. Man and other animals. The unborn of animals is the cut material. When they cut that umbilical cord, they create an unborn position. Now you have goods, but if they don't have that cut material, they have no goods. No goods equals no levy. No goods equals no claim. No goods equals no case. If they don't have a piece of you, they can do absolutely nothing. That's called sovereignty.
Sovereign immunity. You can gain sovereign immunity by understanding who you are, but people want sovereign immunity on a piece of paper because they're living in fear. But I'm going to say my favorite quote by Mark Passio now that I told you last night, which is, one cannot be truly free without accepting the potential for chaos. Let me tell you something, people. When you are free, you do not have ultimate protection in nature because nature is, shit happens, man, right? But you have to be able to deal with it. It's chaotic.
It's wild.
And you have to be an adult and you have to be able to deal with it. If you want complete protection all of the time, where nothing bad is going to happen and everything's going to go your way, well, then you belong in slavery. You know what I mean? Then slavery is the perfect thing for you. But I don't want to be a slave. I want to take personal responsibility for who I am, accountability, and deal with life. That's what life is about.
If you want to communistically insure each other and each other's property, then you will become the underwriter. You will become the surety for all of that insurance. If you want to live within the Declaration of Independence / laws of nature, nature's God, there is no insurance. There is no guarantees, meaning you wake up and out the door you go with no guarantees of anything. When I hear people say, especially we'll call them so-called religious people, say God will provide as they collect their welfare check. No, God will provide if you get your ass up off the couch, because the instrument through which God provides is your physical existence. So when you get up and go outside and dig a hole for somebody and they give you money, God provided, because the spirit within you is God. As long as you don't abuse, meaning not use, the spirit within, you will always have something to trade with another.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Alrighty.
What the fuck?
And neither does Curtis Richard Kallenbach in reality. It's a title.
Yeah.
Not only, I mean, it is, that's all it is. It's a title, but it's a title that is connected to some DNA, and that DNA is the afterbirth DNA. So when I claim, now I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
Who's guilty here?
Well, not you. It's the character.
But when I claim to be that character, and according to copyright law, the literary property Curtis Richard Kallenbach is subject to the rules of the author. There's one thing I didn't cover about that character. The Curtis Richard Kallenbach character, and I'm talking about the character in a story. Now I'm going to talk about that story being the Passion of the Christ. Here's the thing. What year, George, do you believe it is right now?
Well, I'll be
Just
I'll
make it easy. Make it easy.
Okay. Apparently, it's 2014
It's 2014 AD.
AD. Yeah.
Okay, AD
Okay.
is Anno Domini.
Yeah.
The calendar, the Anno Domini calendar, was created, or actually put in play. The one that we're using today was put in play in 1582 by Pope Gregory.
Yes.
That calendar is a timeline specific to a group of characters. Curtis Richard Kallenbach was born upon that timeline within the framework of that timeline. It is not reality. Now think about that. There's only one reality, and it's here and now. There is no past, there is no future. It's only now. The only time that we live is always in the moment. There is nothing but the moment. Even when tomorrow comes, it's right now. So the moment is all we ever have. We can name it, we can label it, we can call it whatever we want, but it's just all fiction. Well, the Anno Domini calendar has been claimed by the Catholic Church. All characters born within that story, that timeline, belong as property to the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So when you lay claim to a birth date, this is why the first thing out of the cop's mouth is name, and they really want last name, and birth date. Ultimately they want a Christian name and a birth date, because once they have those two things, you've just laid claim to being a character in a book. Their book. The book they lay claim to. In fact, Curtis Richard Kallenbach is a child of God born within the Anno Domini framework or calendar that has been separated, and you said it earlier, you called it salvation, but it's ultimately salvage. Remember, when they salvage that DNA, that afterbirth in the hospital, it's a salvation project and a salvage project.
Yes.
The Lloyds of London takes it on as a salvage project through Admiralty law, and the Catholic Church lays claim to it as a salvation project through their canon law. So guess what? Remember, I just was describing that piece of paper, that paper that mom creates the character, that at the top 2/3 it's first, middle, last, Curtis Richard Kallenbach. The bottom of the page is Kallenbach, comma, Curtis Richard. Here's what the hospital does, and this is why nobody ever sees their true name or knows it, as a matter of fact. They tear it apart. They physically separate church from state of being.
State of being.
They separate.
That's another definition. Can you, because there's a difference between state and state of being, like the state of South Australia or the state of New South Wales or the state of Illinois, and then we think of the state as in the system, the governmental system. We call that the state as well. But true definition of the state doesn't mean that, does it?
No, for the biological being, there's only one state, and that's being. That's the I am for the biological being. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that when we claim to be something we're not, and for the people in America, the word is constitution. The word constitute is basically to mean, of what are you made? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your constitution is the material of that you're made from. If you're made from godly matter, then your constitution is spiritual. But if you claim to be part of some other political state, then you're constituted of statutory material. So the word constitution is extremely dangerous. And the word constituent, to be a constituent is to be a part of some other matter, some mass. So, I mean, ultimately, to be a constituent of anything other than yourself is to make basically an erroneous claim or to lie. I mean, you're actually taking a position that's not true. And that's why we're being punished, is because we're intellectually dishonest on every level. Well, we're spiritually dishonest too, but it goes back to something very simple, and it is physical. They physically separate the two elements. They separate the bottom, the last comma, first, middle. I'm writing this down so I can actually see it myself.
Yep.
Hang on just a second. What they do, hang on, here we go. I have 100, George, I have 100 pens here, and the only one I'm trying to use doesn't work. Okay. Here it is. I'm glad you're not videoing this. So here's what I have some friends here, and I'm just going to show this to them as I'm saying it. What's interesting is they actually take this birth document, call it a certificate of live birth in America, and they take and they separate the spirit. They call it this is actually a process right in the hospital in the hospital itself, and they separate the spirit. In other words, they distill or baptize, because that's what baptism is. It's a distillation, the spirit from the matter. And the matter is the DNA, okay? So call it the afterbirth or whatever. And then, of course, the spirit is the word. What's the word? The word is Curtis Richard Kallenback. That's the word. So they separate the spirit, the word, from the matter, or the subject from the matter. Think about a courtroom. So the subject is Curtis Richard Kallenback. The subject of the Harry Potter books is Harry Potter. So the spirit and the matter are now separated, and they physically separate them. And nobody ever sees the actual DNA side of the equation. In other words, last name, comma, first, middle is torn away, is separated. This is the wound. This is the separation in their world, the Catholic Church. This is the separation of the Christ from the matter, the mass, the body, the DNA. So they have a physical, and you know what they call this? An initiation. It's an initiation. And the whole thing is, and it's a big joke on us, whether it's the Pythagorean Brotherhood or, you know, the mathematicians of the world or whoever created this system way back when, the joke is that it's our journey to find our way back home. In other words, the spirit or the subject or that character, Curtis Richard Kallenback, is on a journey. And think about this, and again, I apologize for dumping so much, but what name is the name in commerce? What name, George? Curtis Richard Kallenback is not Curtis Richard Kallenback the name that is in the commercial realm. Yes, it's the name tied to a social insurance number, a social security number here. It's the name used on a bank account. It's the name used in all the courtrooms. It's the name used for the public schools or anything that I'm doing. K.R. Kallenbach, Curtis Richard Kallenbach, Curtis R. Kallenbach, any derivation of Curtis Richard Kallenbach. That is the commercial name. But it's also the name that is forever lost in the sea of commerce. So the spiritual name, which first of all should never be put into commercial realm, but the first, middle, last is out there in the commercial realm on the sea of commerce until I wake up.
Yep.
And here in America, they actually have a name for it, and nobody knows it, but it's called the American Dream.
Until we transcend in the trance of the dream.
Right. And once you wake up, I mean, think about this. Curtis Richard Kallenbach is a somnambulist, a sleepwalker. I mean, I actually have to be asleep in order. I cannot be the awakened and be in commerce.
Yeah.
Because the only one that's accepted at the bank is Curtis Richard Kallenbach. The only one accepted to get a loan from anybody is Curtis Richard Kallenbach. That character is in the commercial realm. I am not. They only allow that sleeping character in that underworld, in that commercial realm. I don't get to enter that. I have to be asleep in order to
dream.
In order to dream. Yeah. I mean, so they have us even using their mantra, the American Dream.
Yeah.
And everybody gets to stay asleep, but the moment you wake up is the moment you see it for what it is. And that's where we're at. That's kind of what's fun about this. It used to be really ugly and gross until I started seeing it for what it is. And then I realized that what they did is they created the beast themselves, and now they can't control it because they created an entire planet of needful, takers. Not many producers left. They got rid of all those. But anyway, so think about how simple this process is in the hospital. Think about how
it's
simple this
quite
is.
amazing because a lot of people don't think of it on that level. I'm sure there'll be people listening to this that are really struggling to grasp the
I know.
concept. I did in the beginning, and I'm still working my way through it. And I haven't totally grasped it, but I'm a fair way there with having listened to a bit of your work now. And I tell you what, you really have nutted down the detail of the process. I just want to give you a big pat on the back for that and acknowledge you there, because there's not many people that see through the design of the system.
Well, everybody, what they do though, George, is they get everybody to start saying the very words they want them to say.
Exactly.
They had everybody screaming for the separation of church and state. You cannot separate the spirit from the matter. You can't do it, but they did it. They physically did it with a piece of paper, a two-dimensional piece of paper that has a name on the top and a claim form or claim ticket to the DNA on the bottom. That the church is the spirit and the state is the DNA or the matter. And they never, ever come back together unless you awaken to that fraud. And it is a fraud, but we're okay with it because we get all the shiny, spinny, the bright things that they tell us we want. And I said it Saturday night. Curtis, baby Curtis, proper name Curtis, the biological child Curtis, that's the only name I was ever given because that's the only name I can possibly claim. It's a proper name. Kallenback is a shared name with multiple people in a bloodline, so that can never be mine on my own. So Curtis alone is my proper name.
John 8:32. John 8:32. That's it. There's my answer for everything, because the truth of the matter is fertilization. It's an act of God. By the way, think about insurance law. Are acts of God covered by insurance? No, which means you're back to nature. If you know the origin of the species and an act of God are one and the same thing. Fertilization's an act of God. It's also the origin of the species, which is uninsurable. If it's uninsurable, it's not subject to what's known as public policy. What's a public policy? It's an insurance policy. So and all of those insured have to do what? They're subject to policy rules. So again, if you're uninsurable, you're not subject to public policy, which means you're not subject to any of this mask wearing nonsense. I call it a corporate veil. And the idea is that public policy is an insurance policy. If you choose to live under public policy, which is protection, then you're subject to all this nonsense. If you choose to live under the laws of nature and nature's God, the Declaration of Independence direction, then there's no insurance, there's no welfare, there's no nothing. It's sink or swim on your own. And the beauty about that is that if it's sink or swim on your own, everything you earn is untaxable, and you are 100% responsible for your own existence. That means that when you don't go to work, you don't eat. That means that when you don't go to work, you don't have a roof over your head. That means it's completely up to you. Now, which do you want? Which do most people want, Rose? Do they want to be completely responsible, or do they want somebody else to pay for their fucking life? That's the problem.
They want somebody else to pay for their fucking life, and that is the problem. We have bred a bunch of ignorant children living in fear of responsibility, and people are being so cut off from each other, and social distancing is just a metaphor for what has already been occurring because people don't have faith in themselves and their connection to other human beings and caring about other people. If people cared about each other, then people wouldn't be worried, oh my gosh, if I don't have a birth certificate and if I don't have a social security number and if I don't pay into the system, then God forbid something happens to me, then nobody is going to take care of me. But people don't realize that all of this shit is new, that there was a world before social security disability insurance. There was a world before this controlling system where everyone has mommy and daddy issues, where mommy is is the education system and daddy is the government to save us. But you know what? In reality, spiritually, no one is going to save you, especially if you're spiritually put into a position of slavery where you don't have any accountability for your actions. And that's what I love about my parents were very strict growing up, but I am so grateful that they taught me personal responsibility and the feelings of accomplishment when you are able to take care of yourself and work hard to create the reality around you. But I don't know how to solve this other than educating people and empowering and inspiring people to raise children who have that kind of personal responsibility and say fuck the government. But this is the interesting thing. My parents did that for me, but they still think that they are good people because they are tax paying citizens.
Well, here's the thing is when you say, I'm very cautious when I use the word government, because my government, the Lord, is my own consciousness. I am consciously self-governing, meaning that I know right from wrong, just like you do. And so I choose to do things or not do things based upon my own ability to self-govern. Now, when you don't have that ability to self-govern, you defer to another government. So when people talk about our government, there's no such thing because there's no our. You and I don't have the same government. I'm self-governing and you're self-governing. Yes. But when you put yourself under somebody else's roof, remember what Dad says, you live under my roof, you go by my rules. Well, guess what my roof is? My roof is my skull. My roof is the dome over my brain. That's my roof. My rules are inside my head. Innately, I know right from wrong. I don't need somebody to say, Kurt, 35 miles an hour is the law. No, it isn't. The law is be smart about what you're doing. That's the law. If I can travel at 100 miles an hour, there's nobody else. If everybody's dead, by the way, everybody is dead. America's one giant cemetery plot because everybody chose death. By the way, social distance, before I forget, is 6 feet, right? Well, 6 feet under is also social distancing. The social distance between the living and the dead is 6 feet.
Yeah.
So when they talk about a social distance, they're talking about the idea of the two worlds. The world of the living is separated now from the world of the dead. I choose, by the way, you can't be both, so you have to pick one. If you choose one over the other, the consequences are amazing. If you choose life, by the way, you have sovereign immunity from all. And that's the point, is that people don't understand that the only way to choose life and sovereign immunity is from fertilization. If you choose to keep celebrating a birthday, you are celebrating death. You're part of the death cult. And again, that's what people don't understand, is that you can't change anything that has that birthday character on it because it's not your property. It belongs to somebody else. So only an idiot would think that you could change the Levi's label on a Levi's product. You can't do that. It's not your property to change. They're going to laugh at you. They let you go out of that courtroom thinking you did something amazing. They let you go tell all your friends that you're free and you've done this. The fact of the matter is they duped you. Yep, you can't change the name of somebody else's product.